My amendment strikes funding for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, Security Investment Program. My amendment would strike over $433 million in NATO funding from the bill. America should not be doling out hundreds of millions of dollars to international organizations to help them fight their enemies, especially when they are unwilling to fight for themselves. NATO. But yet America is beyond our pledge. We are spending in 2023 3.5% of our GDP. But yet we don't do anything to defend our own country and our own borders. This is why Americans would love to see Congress take action to defund NATO and stop spending hundreds of millions of their hard-earned money to foreign countries to defend these foreign countries while we don't defend our own country and our own people. Madam Speaker?
I think the sponsor of the amendment has shown pretty clear evidence that she has no idea what the NATO Security Investment Program is actually funding. We're talking about funding that is provided to build infrastructure that takes care of our troops that are overseas so that we can make sure that we invest properly in infrastructure for a vast array of training facilities, of national security facilities, of hangars that contain our airplanes, military aircraft that cost billions of dollars. So everything about what the amendment does actually makes our own service members who are fighting overseas to defend our national security interests and to defend our country less safe. I'm not sure if the sponsor of the amendment has traveled to see our military infrastructure around the world. I have, and oftentimes when we go as the MilCon VA subcommittee, and I've traveled with Judge Carter to see some of our infrastructure, and the appalling conditions in which much of this infrastructure exists makes it so that our service members are less safe. I've been in hangars in which the doors don't close because they are rusted, and the jerry-rigging that our service members has to do to close the doors of some hangars to protect our very expensive equipment that protects our national security interests would straighten my hair. And that's not easy, Madam Chair. We have a responsibility to make sure that the infrastructure that we fund is in pristine, well-kept condition. And what the sponsor of the amendments would do is decimate our ability to do that. That's irresponsible, it's unpatriotic, and we should not support this amendment, and members should vote against it. And I yield back the balance of my time.
I've only been in Congress for a year and a half, but I am so sorry that you are subjected to those level of attacks and insanity. Your quote-unquote so-called science that the gentlewoman is referring to has saved millions of lives in this country and around the world, and I want to thank you for that. I also think it's important to note that, in my opinion, is that you are an American hero, and your team has done more to save lives than all 435 members of this body on both sides of the aisle. You guys have worked not just during this pandemic, but over time to save millions of lives in this country and across the world. We lost 1.1 million American lives. 1.1 million American lives, 7 million lives around the world. We were having 9/11-like events, death events daily in this country, losing 4,000, 5,000 people every single day. I was mayor during the time of the pandemic. I remember how painful it was to close businesses, to shut down schools, but how quickly we forget the pain and how scared we were as a country. We were washing our groceries as they were coming in. We were keeping seniors at a distance. The tragedy that was happening in our nursing homes. Thousands of people were dying a day, and you and your team of the best and the brightest scientists in this country and the world were doing everything that you could and working night and day to save more and more of those lives. A lot of my colleagues know that my mom was a healthcare worker during the pandemic. My mom died of COVID. My stepfather died of COVID. I lost both of my parents during the pandemic. So I take this very personally, especially when other members of this body who are tasked to be responsible and to actually help the American people attack medical professionals like you and across the world. Vaccines, a vaccine that you and your team helped foster, have saved millions of American lives. These attacks are ridiculous. Now, even before this committee started, I'm going to point a few things out. Even before this committee started, this same member that just went on this rant introduced the Fire Fauci Act and promoted on a podcast saying that COVID was a bioweapon. That is how insane some of these comments are. And I want to quote this. This is a quote from the same member. "I don't believe in evolution. These viruses were not making people sick until they created them. They weaponize these viruses to be able to attach to our cells and make us sick. It's a bioweapon." The "they created them," sir, is you. They are attacking you and our medical community for actually creating COVID that has caused the deaths of millions. And we know that these extreme comments are targeting public health officials across the country. I also want to show you this other comment. Same member who just attacked you. "The Fauci-funded Wuhan lab created the virus." This is so crazy and irresponsible. In this post, the same member of this committee is accusing you of orchestrating a global conspiracy to create COVID on purpose just to make people get vaccines. That you've done this, sir. This same member routinely promotes complete misinformation about vaccines and actually has encouraged the routine prevention of vaccinations that even eliminate diseases like the measles. Dr. Fauci, you've brought together our nation and the world's best and brightest scientists to take on COVID and create a vaccine that works. I want to ask you a question. I want to be crystal clear for the public. You brought together the world and America's best scientists. Do you believe that the vaccine that you all helped create and ensure is safe and effective for the public?
Yes, and its track record has proven that.
And do you also agree that it saved hundreds of thousands and possibly millions of lives in America and across the world?
That is absolutely correct. And it's very clear that it's saved millions of lives here and throughout the world.
Caitlin, that whenever somebody gets up, whether it's a news media, Fox News does it a lot, or it's somebody in the Congress who gets up and makes a public statement that I'm responsible for the deaths of X number of people because of policies or some crazy idea that I created the virus, immediately it's like clockwork, the death threats go way up. So that's the reason why I'm still getting death threats when you have performances like that unusual performance by Marjorie Taylor Greene in today's hearing. Those are the kind of things that drive up the death threats, because there are a segment of the population out there